couple of months back, the Honorable Chief Minister visited one of the apartments in Mahsuri, that is M3, 4 and 5. And during the visit, he delivered a present for the residents of M3, 4 and 5. In that, he announced that the state government would be footing the bill for the repainting of these apartments. Now, as a former assemblyman of this constituency, I really welcome that good news, because I thought that it was a good move by the state government, and at the same time the people of residents of M3, 4 and 5, they definitely deserve this. I have gone on record to say this from the first press statement I made until the last one, and yet at the same time there were accusations that I'm being political on this. The issue of repainting actually is not political. As I mentioned, we welcome that that move by the present state government, and I agree that in the past the Barisan National Government had not done this. Okay, fair enough. The state government is doing this, and I supported the idea. But what I'm saying is that other than repainting M3, 4 and 5, which is a middle cost apartment and it is privately owned, I felt that this so-called present given by the state government should also be extended to all other flats and apartments in the same category. Okay, the formula that was used by the state government was 80-20. 80-20 in the sense that they were asked to foot 20% of the bill, and I felt that this was fair, because this being a middle cost apartment, the financial position of those residents who are staying there are much better. So in this case, the state government is willing to fork out about 400,000, and the residents have to call out 100,000. Fair enough. That's not an issue. But at the same time, if you impose the same requirement on other flats, especially those which are categorized under low cost or low medium cost, then I think it is not correct. In the first place, there is a big difference between M3, 4 and 5 and low cost flats. Those people who are staying in low cost flats, they are all aware they have their own problems. For example, even in the case of paying their monthly maintenance fees, they really have problem in paying this. So now, if you were to ask them to foot the 20%, that is simply not possible. It's as good as telling them that I'm sorry you don't qualify, you can't do it. I mean, if we ask ourselves, in the whole of Penang Island, how many low-cost flats committee have this sum of money, with them, or how many of those residents, who are staying there are able to pay this 20%. I think if the state government, were to check their records, just to check on the defaulters list of those people who are staying in low cost or low medium cost, I think that will tell the story. So to ask them, to pay the 20%, this is where we differ. Okay, on May the 11th, the assemblyman of this area unfortunately, accused me of playing politics, as far as this issue is concerned. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this issue is not political at all. I'm so surprised, why the assemblyman chose, to say that, because I raised this issue, and I think that it's being fair that somebody should raise this issue. There are a few differences, between the present assemblyman when we see views on this and my view. For instance, he thinks that only PDC and state housing units should be included. I totally differ with this, because if you are talking about low cost, there are many low cost units which are not exactly built or owned by the state government, but I feel that they are also entitled to the same benefit if the state government is serious on giving this incentive to help those low cost units. Okay, after all, if let's say for instance, if they can't afford it, if you only pay only those state owned low cost units, what about the others? How would that sound? Do you think that is fair? At the same time, these low cost units which are not state owned eventually will also turn into urban slums. So who is responsible for this? So extending this to them is nothing wrong. That's my view. At the same time, since N3, 4 and 5 is also a private middle cost apartment, I think all those other private owned apartments within the same category should also be given the same treatment. That's all we're asking. This is where I differ on the first point with YBC. On the second point, it looks like he's agreeable to the 80-20 formula, which I don't. I feel that as an assemblyman, he has actually missed a golden opportunity, to fight for the rights of this low-cost residents. And he's in the assembly. He could have raised it. This issue was raised. When I submitted this memorandum to the state government, he had the best opportunity to stand up during the debate and fight for this issue on behalf of all low-cost residents in Penang. I think if the Penang state government is really serious about helping, they can go so far as 80%. What is the remaining 20%? I don't know what is the logic, of the state government in asking those residents, to pay up 20%. That is where we differ. I think I don't agree. I feel that the state government should waive this condition, to show their sincerity and to show that this is actually nothing political. They should waive this 20%, so that the residents can enjoy the benefit. Now, if you look at the other aspect of this repainting issue, again, this represents a golden opportunity to show the ability to cooperate with the federal government. I think when the Prime Minister Najib came and visited Rifle Range a few months ago, he did mention that since the state government wants to take over the job of repainting the flats and apartments, well, I don't think the federal government wants to come in, otherwise there will be these accusations here and there of who is supposed to take the credit. So fine, let's divide out the workload. Let the state government take over the repainting. The federal government can then come in and with the funds they can assist, for instance in other important aspects of high-rise dwelling. For instance repairing of lift. For instance repairing of water tanks. There are many jobs to do. So if both parties can share out the workload, they can divide out the job. I think this is where it shows the cooperation The federal government has got no problem, I think in working for the benefit of the people. Now I think the ball is on the court of the state government. So when I first submitted the memorandum to the State Assembly, there were almost close to 60 high-rise apartments, mainly in the constituency of Pantai Jejak and Batu Uban, which wanted the state government to consider number one, including them in this scheme, and secondly to also waive the 20%, because as I mentioned, I think it is almost impossible to expect residents who are staying in this particular kind of housing scheme to participate because I think we will have a problem financially speaking. So at the same time let's equate this I'm just using an example to illustrate my point. Okay, if you know that there's a family which is very poor, they don't even have the means to have a decent meal and all that kind of things. Okay, then you come along and you tell them, okay, let's go out for a meal in a restaurant or something like that. Okay, but the condition is that I will put 80%, the 20% you pay. What do you think will happen? Do you think that this family which is poor, they come from a poor family, they don't have that means to even survive properly? You think that they can pay out the 20%? I think this is not a sincerity if you really want to help by all means I have no problem with that. I have already said I've gone on record despite what my assemblyman has accused me. I've gone on record from day one. I've said that I've never objected to this scheme. On the contrary, I have congratulated the state government on a fine move. Okay, all I'm asking for the state government is that be fair, so that if you can do it for M3, 4 and 5, which I've got no objection, and I'm very happy for them. Anyway, many of those residents are my personal friends. I don't see any reason why you can't include them. You see, because what is the basis? Your basis is what? The state government basis is that state owned. I asked questions during the subsequent press statement which I made after I was attacked by YB Wei Ek the political secretary to the chief minister, as well as ex-co-member of housing, YB Wong Mun Hoe. They said that it's impossible, to do for the whole of Penang, and that I'm just playing politics. My point to them is very simple. Can you please confirm, for me, in the first place, whether M345 is a state-owned building, apartment, or a private one? Number one. Number two, is M345 a low-cost unit, a low-cost apartment, or not a low-cost apartment? Okay. And number three, why is it that you cannot pay the extra 20%? You have already gone so far to pay 80%. What is the real issue here? What is it? Why do you need these low-cost housing people to pay out the 20%? Can the state government provide statistics or figures to show the defaulters that are presently existing in all state-owned units? This is state-owned. What about private-owned low-cost units? Do you have that kind of figure? I mean, if you look at the figure, then I'm sure you will agree with me that my point is very clear. Please, those people staying in that kind of area, it is impossible for them to pay the 20%. So please, if you are serious to help them, do it. Do it in the proper way. I think people will appreciate that. We may be from a different political party, we may be from a different political ideology, but it doesn't matter. If something is good, we will support it. I've already said many times, I know we are supporting this. We welcome the effort by the state government, but please be fair. Please be fair to everybody, and please do not impose conditions which cannot be met, because that is just plain talking. You're not actually going to achieve anything at all.